Today, we kick it off with our friend Steve Harney. Let me just give you a very informal, insightful, true intro of Steve before I turn it over to him. Steve is a legend in real estate. His modesty will prevent him from acknowledging that, but he is, and that's a fact. Steve owned a 550 agent brokerage founded KCM and now spends part of his time in retirement and the other part as real estate's most prolific spokesperson, public defender, and voice of absolute reason and clarity. Steve's agenda to offer a counter narrative to the media's take on real estate is backed by data, research, common sense, and passion for our industry. For those in real estate, he keeps his eye focused on what's real, true, and fact-based. So please welcome my friend, and proud to say that, Steve Harney.
Thank you very much, Marianne. I appreciated the introduction and the whole 9 yards like that. But ladies and gentlemen, as you mentioned, I owned a brokerage and it was up on Long Island. So I know the real stars on this webinar are you. I mean, like you went through the battle of the last 12 months. You went through the craziness of the 24 months before that. And I tip my hat to you. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be a broker during that 36-month stretch with the ups and downs and the craziness going from interest rates, mortgage rates going from 2.5% to 8%, and then back down. Now it looks like we'll come down the other side of that, which we'll discuss in a second. But I do want to let you know, since I have sat in your chair, I do know how much aspirin you had to go through for the last 36 months. Don't you think some speakers will come on trying to figure out what how difficult things were for you? I have a better understanding because, again, I sat in that chair for many, many years. What I want to do today is two things. I want to give you three what I think would be keys to having a successful brokerage in 2024. And I also want to break down some of the reasons I think for those three reasons. But let's start off by me sharing my screen. And I'll go back and forth one time on that. So hold on one second. The three keys to brokerage. First key is don't get distracted. And I don't think you'll be distracted, but I think it's going to be a full-time job this year, making sure your agents aren't distracted. There's a whole bunch of things that taking place. We have a situation where we have an election year coming up. For all the people that want to know, well, what does that mean? It means people are going to be crazy. All right, absolutely crazy. That's number one. The other thing that's going to take place is we still have a continuation of people wanting to attack NAR. All right, so and that's going to keep on, rearing its ugly head. We have to get the agents on business and not distracted by those things. As far as the election is concerned, it's going to be crazy. There's no argument. How does it impact real estate? Well, I'll tell you, we've done a study over the last 10 elections, presidential elections. And what winds up taking place is the month of October going into November, things slow up a little bit, but all that business gets returned to us from the middle of November to the end of December. So it just kind of shifts the business a little bit. There's no decrease or increase in business during presidential election years. So it just shifts it a little bit as people lose focus going into the election, into the beginning of November. That will be one thing. And then when they come out, that's something that's different. All right. Now let's take a quick discussion about NAR real quick. If you have those anti-NAR people or they're trying to defend NAR against anti-NAR people, understand that NAR as an institution that served us very, very well. All right. Now, do I agree with everything that NAR has done? No. No one. I don't agree. I've been married for 49 years and I don't agree with everything my wife does. So I definitely don't agree with everything that NAR does. All right. And they're having a rough, couple of months. There's no question about that. But if we think back just a little bit ago, between the help that Marianne has done and LIBOR has done and NAR has done, we got essential worker status. Would that have happened without NAR? I don't know. I don't think so. So instead of thinking about all the craziness right now, think about, well, how much money did we make in 20 and 21 because we got that status. And if you remember back then, that was a battle. That was an easy thing to do. All right. And so now across the whole country, and maybe it wasn't as difficult in New York as it was in Michigan, which was crazy. All right. But it was difficult every place. So we have to take a look at the institutions. You know, there are really some crazy politicians. We don't decide to get rid of democracy. I'm a Catholic. We had some crazy priests. We had bad players. We didn't get rid of the Catholic Church. We didn't blame, you know, it's a situation where the Catholic Church is still in existence because it did so much good. They got rid of the bad players. And that's exactly what NAR did. They got rid of the bad players. They're going through a PR challenge. But let's drop that and move it on to the side. And I know, like with the lawsuits, I'm not going to address that. I'm not an attorney. But I know LIBOR, for instance, you know, has a bio-resource center that you can go to. The Marianne has worked very, very hard with her team to make sure that you have the answers that you need. Figure out what you're going to do. Tell the agents this is how we're going to handle it, and then drop it and keep on moving. Don't let the agents spend too much time on that. And basically, what I'm saying to that is pretty simple. The first responsibility of the leader is to define reality. All right, that's one of the principles that I stand by. And I will tell you that what winds up taking place with that is let them know that this is going to be a year that they can make up for the money they didn't make last year. There's a pent-up buying demand. People were pushed to the sideline for a bunch of different reasons, the main reason being mortgage rates and affordability. And there were a whole group of sellers that were pushed to the sideline because they were locked into a 3% rate and they weren't going to sell that and buy something at, you know, 7% rate. So there's a pent-up buyer and selling demand that's about to unleash on the market. It's already starting. And that's what they should be concentrating on. They shouldn't be concentrating on the things that are distracting them, the things that other people are making money on because they're talking about it so much. They should concentrate on what they're going to make money on. And talking about all these crazy items is not one of them. All right, number two, know the market. All right, and let's go through that a little bit. I'm going to give you a couple of quick things that we'll have questions and answers for the last 15 minutes. Most agents know what's happening. That's true. Good agents understand what's happening. Good ones kind of understand what's happening. Great agents can explain what's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, the most agents that just know what's taking place right now, they ain't going to make this. They ain't going to make it through this year. If you don't understand, you have to at least understand what's happening in order to, you know, to some degree, look, you know, professional when you're sitting in front of a buyer or a seller. If you can explain what's happening to them, you're gold. You're absolute gold. And most agents cannot explain what's happening. They kind of get a feel for what's happening, but they don't know that. So I'm going to go through with you what I think is going to take place at a national level. And then you have to take that information and break it down, not to New York City or Queens or Nassau County or Suffolk County, right to your marketplace. Because we all know it's hyper-local. You know, I have a house on the lake in North Carolina. You know, what are the values of the properties in my community? Well, it differs on each side of the road. I'm on the lake side. My house is worth a lot more than the house across the street that's not on the lake. So it's very, you know, real estate, and that's one of the reasons that, you know, technology will never be able to come in and take us over because every single property is different to a degree. Now, you might have one condo complex that you can make the argument the other way, but the vast majority of the properties we sell are unique. And their uniqueness is what we sell. So it's crucially important that we take into consideration everything. So I'm going to give you the national, what I think nationally, like what the trend in the market's going to be. And then you have to break it down to your local using the information that your local MLSs give you. I'm calling this, and if you don't know, now I'm the founder. I no longer own it. My son owns it. But I'm the founder of Keeping Current Matters, which is known as KCM. All right. So this is what we're telling the 30,000 agents that are our subscribers. This is the year of the fives. We believe strongly that 5 will be the handle, meaning the first number on mortgage rates sometime in the middle of this year. We're calling May. When it went from 7%, if it went to 6.99, people reacted differently. When that first number is 5, even if it's 5.99, people are going to react differently. And that's what most of the forecasters, most of the economists, they don't get. Commercial real estate's all about the numbers. Residential real estate is all about people. And they don't really take that human behavior metric into consideration. And that's what's going to take place. When those mortgage rates hit 5%, all heck is going to break loose. What does that mean? We're projecting that'll be 5.5 million in total sales. That's an increase of about 1 million sales, new construction and the existing home sales, by a little over 1 million. And I'll be honest with you, I think it's going to be more than that. Because what no one's taken into consideration, it's not just we're going to do the business we did last year, where we sold about 4 million houses. We're going to do that business plus the extra business that's coming in. All right, that pent up demand that's there. And because of that, and it's not going to be, people will say, well, if all that demand is going to, all that supply is going to come, is that going to drive prices down? Ladies and gentlemen, for every 10 listings that come to the market, 7 also bring a buyer to it. So it's not like 10 listings that come into the market and nobody's buying. This is not 2008 that somebody lost their house and sold their house as a short sale and have to move into a rental because they can't get another house. They can't get another mortgage. That's not what's happening here. 70% of the listings are going to come to market are going to bring a buyer with it. So I think we're going to have a balance, and we feel very strongly that we're going to go back to normal appreciation levels. If we look over the last 40 years, and we'll show you that in a second, that is about 5%. So we call it the year of the fives. We're going to have 5% interest rates by the middle of the year. We're going to sell over 5 million houses, and we're going to have a 5% appreciation, approximately that. Now, will that change from area to area? Sure. You know, if I was doing this presentation in Austin, Texas, you know, which is probably, you know, if you don't know that, that's like the poster child for everything that went wrong. They're going to have a tougher time in Austin, Texas. They're going to have a tougher time in Boise, Idaho. But both of those cities also went up over 50% the 2 years before that. So they're going to give a little bit of that back. I don't see the country as a whole giving anything back. I just don't see it. All right, let's go to the 5% mortgage handle. Why I think what I think, because what you need to do as a broker, when they come up with the objections, you have to be able to handle those objections, just like they have to do it at a table. Well, what makes you think that interest rates are going to go to 5%? Well, let's try to make it as easy as we possibly can. What we have is we're already heading down. Now, we've balanced out just at about 6.6%, but I do think that that will take another tick down soon. As a matter of fact, live right here, let's just take a look at one thing real quick. The US 10-year Treasury, which is a piece of that, and we'll explain that to you in a second, is under 4. That's a big component of this. So I do think that they'll continue to tick down, and we'll break that down in a second. Here's the spread. The mortgage rate, I just told you that the 10-year Treasury, which is one piece of what takes place, of the mortgage rate, is down under 4. That's good news. The other piece of it is the spread. How much do mortgage companies and banks charge above the 10-year Treasury in order to write a mortgage? This is the over 50 years, how closely they're associated. The 10-year Treasury and the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. The difference between those two, the difference between the blue line and the green line, is what is called the spread. For over 50 years, that averaged out to 1.72%. And really, if you look at the two graphs, they follow each other almost exactly. Now look all the way to the right where that little orange box is. Right now, the spread is over a full point more than its 50-year average. So as things calm down, as there's no more Fed rate increases, and maybe there's even a pullback by the Fed, what we're going to see is that number get back to normal, more normal numbers. What does that mean? Well, let's take a look at it right now. Why are mortgage rates so high? It's not necessarily the blue, which is the 10-year treasury yield, which is exactly where it is right now. And I did this last night. All right. But let's take a look. On the left, if the spread was normal, the 50-year average of 1.72, it's not like an average was way high and real way low. It followed it almost exactly, 1.72 for that 50 years. Mortgage rates would already be in the fives. But because the orange, the spread is still up, we're at 6.76 as of late last night. So what do I think is going to happen? Very, very simply. I think the spread is going to contract. And when the spread contracts, what's going to take place next? Mortgage rates are going to come down. And again, I'm calling May. We'll be in the fives in May. Now, we're going to have a great early part of the year. It's already starting in most of the country. And then it's going to be bonkers during the buying season. The normal spring buying season is going to be bonkers. So if I was a broker, you know, in your area right now, this is the only thing I'd be telling agents to do. Go get a listing. And whatever they said after I said that, well, no, well, this, well, that, this is what I would say. Go get a listing. And if they then turned around and said, well, Steve, you don't understand, but this is my next comment would be, go get a listing. The only thing they would hear from me when they were talking to me is, go get a listing. Because they might not like me for doing that, but our jobs as brokers is not to get them to like us. Our job as brokers is to help them. You know, there's a lot of leaders that think that the trick to leadership is to get people to like you. No. The trick to leadership is you're a servant to that person. You want to help them. And this is what I tell all the leaders at KCM, and we have 55 employees, so we're a pretty big company. Every leader at KCM, I said, don't try to get your people to like you. Just help them. Because this is what will happen. If you do help them, they won't like you, they'll love you. But going through the process of helping them, they might not like you. And anyone on here is old enough to be a parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying that agents are children. I'm not saying that, just like I'm not saying the staff at KCM are children. But it's the same type of analogy. We were tough with our children because we love them. And because we're so tough with them, because we love them so much, they might not like us at certain times. But as they get older, what happens? They realize we did what we did. And at the end, it makes them love us. It's the same thing with your staff. Now, this is pretty interesting because his rates are coming down. This is what Les Lambert, the founder of Resi Club, he used to be the housing editor for Fortune magazine. This is what he said. We might be at peak lock-in effect. The lock-in effect is the fact that sellers don't want to sell because they have a low mortgage rate and rates are higher. Some move-up or lifestyle sellers might be coming to terms with the fact that 3% and 4% mortgage rates aren't returning anytime soon. I'm going to stop there. I don't think they're returning in our lifetime. So let's just say that. If the lock-in effect eases up further in 2024, meaning if mortgage rates continue to drop, it could help boost existing sales from the very low levels experienced at the end of 2023. Now, Lance is being very, what's the word I could use? Conservative in what he's saying. I think if the lock-in effect gets affected in a way that we're at 5%, it's not going to be we're going to get existing sales are just going to boost from a very low levels. I think they're going to explode. And the brokers that understand that are going to have an inventory of listings, of sellable listings, and the agents that understand that are going to have a personal inventory of listings, and they're going to make a fortune in 2024. Let's talk about that. Total sales. This is the mortgage rates, and you let your agents know this. I'm giving all of these slides over to Marianne, and she always twists my arm. I need your slides. I'm going to ask for your slides. So I love Marianne tremendously. She's been a tremendous mentor to me for many, 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 many years. So whenever she asks me anything, I have to say, okay, Marianne, don't worry about it. So these slides are going to, to Marianne today, and she'll get them out to you. She'll let you know where you can find them. But a slide like this, the agent should know. This is the breakdown of all the mortgages currently in the country. And what we can see is there's a large 78.7% have less than a 5% mortgage rate. That's the lock-in. And the way we've always looked at it is this. If they have less than 3%, and that's that, blood red up in the upper right-hand corner, they're probably not going to sell because the mortgage rate's too high. Between 3 and 4, they're probably not going to sell. Between 4 and 5, they have to think about it. Between 5 and 6, yeah, they're probably going to sell. They're close enough. And obviously, if they're over 6, they're ready to sell. Now, this is what everyone talks about in the lock-in effect, and it is real. I'm not arguing it's not real. But also understand, and it's important that we all do, that 38.7% of all the houses in this country are owned free and clear. Another 30% have at least 50% equity. So if we put those two numbers together, 38.7 and 30, almost 70% of the homes in this country have at least 50% equity, with 38.7 having 100% equity. Those people aren't worried about mortgage rates because they can use the equity in their house to make the move to the next house, especially up in New York, because a lot of your sellers, especially the ones with big equity, the older seller is what? They're either downsizing on the island or they're moving off the island to be with their children and grandchildren that left the island years ago. They could get a deal. They could take the equity out of their house and not have to take a mortgage on a house in Myrtle Beach. So we have to be very aggressive in our prospecting, which we'll talk about in a second. We have to be very aggressive with our prospecting to that degree. The second thing is, these are the top 3 reasons, and this is from Bright MLS, the top 3 reasons buyers put their thing on pause. All right, why they got back up on the fence. Number 1 was mortgage rates. They're coming down. That's going to be taken care of. Number 2 is inventory. Well, inventory is starting to come to the market again. That's going to be taken care of. Availability of home prices. Home prices are moderating. They're not increasing in double digits anymore. This year, we're going to finish up nationally. We're going to finish up about 5.5%. Not 10, 15% like the last couple of years, the years before that, I should say. And so affordability is not good, but it's getting better. And ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about affordability, don't let your buyers think that we're talking about the same affordability from 3 years ago when mortgage rates were 2.5%. That was once in a lifetime deal. We're not going back to that affordability level. We're going to go back to a regular affordability, not the all-time best affordability in the history of American real estate. Let's keep on going. We now forecast 3 consecutive 25, that's like 0.25% cuts in March, May, and June to reset the policy rate from the level that Powell has recently taken to describing as well into restrictive territory rather than just restrictive. There's a lot of argument of whether or not the Fed is going to actually cut the rate, but most people believe they will in 2024. They will argue it's the first half, the second half, it's going to be 3 cuts, it's going to be 5 cuts. This is what I know. Just the fact that they're talking about it has already brought that spread, which was at 3.3, down to 2.8. It's already, just talking about it has dropped the spread by 0.5 point, meaning it dropped the the mortgage rate by 0.5 point. So as they start doing that, I think we'll continue to see that going down. 5% will be the approximate home price appreciation rate. Now, you should be looking at your local data to make sure that you know exactly what it is. Obviously, we have national data. That's what KCM does. Now, we do have a local component. We can break a lot of stuff down to you locally, but I'm not here to talk about KCM. I'm here to talk about you. All right. Case-Shiller. This is actually what happened this year. Now, Case-Shiller is a repeat sales. It's on median sales. It's a repeat sales, meaning same house or same type of house or the same block. What happened? And what we can see, ladies and gentlemen, very simply, is the people that think the prices are going down, that's just not true. It's just wrong. And there's a lot of doomers out there that get paid to be doomers. Understand, the way they make money is to be a doomer. We can't listen to those people. We have to combat it with the facts. And I think that that's important that we do that. Basically, this is the 49-year average, how monthly prices, month over month prices change. So what we can see over the last almost 50 years, prices appreciate moderately at the beginning of the year. Then as we go into the buying season, they ramp up. Month over month, they get more and more expensive. Then as we leave the buying season, they ramp down. Doesn't mean they depreciate. They're still appreciating, but the level of appreciation decelerates. Where do we stand this year? We're going back to normal. We started the year a little slow. Then we got a little bit too crazy. But now look what's taking place since June. We're going back to normal levels of appreciation. And ladies and gentlemen, that's great news. As wages go up and mortgage rates go down, if we could level off prices, that's going to affect affordability. So we're primed for 2024. If I was a broker up in New York or on Long Island, I'd be super ecstatic right now. And one of the reasons I'd be ecstatic is I don't know how many brokers there are in your marketplace, but this is what I know. A very small percentage are on this call. A very small percentage are making sure they're ready. A very small percentage take their job that seriously, or their occupation that seriously, that I want to get the best information I possibly can and share it with my agents. That gives you a tremendous head start. Not just because you're on this call, because that's your mindset. You're going to jump out ahead of the rest of them. Understand who you are, because that's going to play a big difference. All right, now we talked about this before. We figured there's going to be about a normal 5% appreciation level. Here we go. Here's for the last 50 years. We put in the 2023 number is 7%. We think that's going to be a little bit lower after the December number comes in, because that's just through November. So we're probably going to be a little bit in the higher mid sixes. But what we can see is the average over the last 43 years is 4.92%. I love using this chart because everyone says, well, prices go up and they go down. House prices, no, they don't. No, they don't. That's not true. If we look at the last 40 years, yeah, they went down. They went down big when we had the great financial crisis. But don't tell me prices go up and go down. No, 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 no. They go up a lot, and they go up a little, and they go up a medium amount, and they go up a lot, and they go up and there was one time during the great financial crisis that they went down, and they went down. So I love giving this graph to the agents and the KCM members, and again, the 30,000 of them, they love this graph because it counters that argument. Now, let's take a look at that. Things like this, you have to introduce it, whatever training you do with your agents. Because if you're giving the tools to overcome the objections they're getting, and who's the one that's giving the most objection? They could be sitting, at a dinner table on a Sunday afternoon, and one of their cousins is thinking about selling their house. And on the other side of the table at this family dinner is Uncle Charlie. Uncle Charlie, he's 50 years old. He still lives in his mother's basement. He has a YouTube channel that he talks about the real estate market's going to crash, and he's been doing that same YouTube videos for the last 17 years. He doesn't know what he's talking about, but he's sitting at that table. He's going to say, well, prices go up and prices go down. You really, you shouldn't sell now and buy something else. That's a bad idea. They need to have this kind of information. I'll argue they have to have it on their phone. Just to shut up Uncle Charlie. So they're not going to convince Uncle Charlie. He's never going to buy a house. But that cousin that's sitting there, that Uncle Charlie's trying to not convince not to sell, they need to be able to talk to that cousin. They need to shut Uncle Charlie up in order to do that. And everyone on this call has an Uncle Charlie in your family. It might be an Aunt Chelsea or whatever the case, but every family has one of those people. All right. Last thing, work in 90-day plans. You need to be flexible this year. You have to let your agents know they need to be flexible this year. What's going to happen with mortgage rates? If mortgage rates drop down to 5%, hey, ladies and gentlemen, hold on, baby, buckle in, because we're in for a wild ride to the good side, but it's still going to be a roller coaster. If mortgage rates all of a sudden tick up a little bit, well, there's another situation. All right, so there's going to be a lot of things we need to work in 90-day plans until we see exactly where the market is settling out. So if you manage your 90-day plans, I'll give you something I think is the last thing. This is what I would do as a broker. I try to imagine that I still owned a brokerage up on Long Island. What would I do? What would be this 90-day plan? Number one, and this I would drill in them every time I saw them. Stay focused, realizing this is an election year. There's going to be all sorts of craziness you can get involved in. None of that is going to help your family financially. If you want to get involved with politics on the outside, you want to do that, that's fine. Dedicate some time to that. Don't use your whole day that you're supposed to be working crazed about what's happening in the presidential election. Because forget about who's going to do better for the economy. Your economy is going to be horrible because you're not working. So it's really, really, really important that we make sure to stay focused. And there'll be other things, very obviously, again, we mentioned before, NAR's going through some roller coaster ride there. There's nothing they can do about that. Hey, well, there's lawsuits. Well, what are you going to do? Are you an attorney? Are you going to hire an attorney? Why are you even talking about that? You have to let them know they have to trust you, and you have to trust Marianne, Libor, what they're doing with their Bioresource Center. You have to get the information from that and let your people know, I'll take care of that. That's not my job. That's your job. I'm sorry, it's not your job. It's my job. It makes them feel confident. Become the expert on everything real estate. Know what's taking place in the marketplace. Know what's taking place in your local marketplace. Know whether inventory is going up or going down. Get a feel for that. Broadcast the mortgage rates. We believe very strongly that it can keep on going down, and survey after survey is showing that many consumers are just now realizing they're going down. We have to be out in front of that. You have to be out in front of that as far as getting more people to list and sell, and you have to be out in front of that in regard to your competition. Ladies and gentlemen, some of your agents don't even know what an expired is. All right, so I mean, like you have someone that came into business 3 years ago, they're saying expired. Somebody died. They don't even know what expired is. Not only did they never are they not flexing that muscle, they don't even know that muscle exists in their body. And when they go after expireds, the first ones they should go after are their own. If your house hasn't sold in 60 days, get a price break now. If it hasn't sold in 60 days, now I get that it's hard for an agent. It's easier for an agent to go after an expired of some other agent than it is to go after their own expireds, meaning listen, it's about to expire. And I wouldn't wait for it to be about to expire. I would have those tough conversations right now. If the house hasn't sold in 60 days, there's something that has to be adjusted there. And let them understand, good agents could deliver good news. Only great agents can deliver tough news. They have to decide whether they're going to be good or great. They're going to have to decide whether they're people of their word. Because when they sat down and took that listing, I know they made two promises to those homeowners. The first thing they promised them is we're going to do everything in their power to get the house sold. And the second thing they said, I'm always going to tell you the truth. Those two promises, they didn't get the listing unless they made those two promises. So if you are not going and sitting to talking because you're afraid they're going to get mad at you because you didn't set the price right at the beginning, and if you're afraid of that, you have to go back on both those promises because you're not doing everything possible to get the house sold, and you're not telling them the truth. And ladies and gentlemen, people think the FSBOs is the way to go, maybe a little bit. Let's attack anything that comes out as a FSBO. Let them understand that. Know what your FSBO situation is. And then offer the pair. Now, I'll tell you what the pair is in a second. you offer CMAs, but every single one on here, oh, free CMA, free CMA. I don't know if the consumer knows what a CMA is, and I don't even know if they care what a CMA is. So we did a couple of years ago that has really proved very, 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 it's worked out very, very well. We renamed what we considered the CMA. Now, what you call something is important. Let's take a look at what do they call it now? Climate crisis. They used to call it global warming, but they had to change the name. Why did they have to change the name? Because of the people on this call. New Yorkers. And people in Michigan and Minnesota, because every winter, what would all of the people there say? Global warming, it's like 12 degrees out here. What are you talking about? It was just a bad name that they constantly got debates. So they made a climate crisis. Now, if a tornado goes through the middle of Missouri, it's climate crisis. Everything is climate crisis. I'm not making a political statement about climate crisis. You're not going to know where I stand on that issue because I'm not even sure where I stand on that issue. What I'm saying is the name is important. What we call at CMA is a professional equity assessment report. Professional equity assessment report. Now, we actually give them a 6-page, booklet that they fill out with the homeowner to go through it. But basically what it is, you call them up. You know how much equity you've gained over the last 3 years in your home? Because, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you from the 30,000 report back to us, homeowners are shocked about how much equity they have in their house. Shocked. Like we do it every day. We know prices skyrocketed. They know prices skyrocketed, but they didn't realize what it meant to them. So all you do is you do what you would normally do. Instead of offering a CMA, you'd offer a professional equity appraisal report, assessment report. And then when you go there, all you need to do is exactly what you would do with a CMA, but you have to ask them one more question. What's your current mortgage balance? And they won't know it. The reports back to it, they don't know. They have to go look up their payment, their payment bill, the mortgage bill. And then they'll look it up and they'll say, oh, this is what we owe. And all you do is do your CMA and add one more line to it. Subtract this. So we think the house is worth $600,000. You owe $200,000. Your equity is $400,000. Now, I will tell you now, up in New York, it's going to be higher than the national average. But I might shock you with the national average. The national average of equity of homeowners right now is $300,000. $300,000. If that number kind of shocked you, you're in the business and it shocked you. If you're a homeowner, you don't know. Let's help them with that, because that will help them make decisions. And the last thing I'll just say, and then we'll open up to questions and answers, Marianne. The last thing I'll say is, if I was in front of agents, every time I talk to them, well, why are you sitting here for? Go prospect. They call you up to complain about, I think, why are you calling up complaining? Go prospect. I don't care how they prospect. I don't care if they knock on doors. I don't care if there's no door knocking allowed in my community. Then don't do that. Right? That's it simple. You don't have to complain about it. You can't do it. Whether they're doing mailings, whether they're doing phone calls, whatever way they prospect, they have to really uptick that. Now, I will tell you where they'll argue with you on that. Here's where they'll argue with you. Well, I've been doing it for a year, and I'm not getting the return I thought I would get. You're right. The return on investment of any prospecting over the last 18 months has not been as good as it was before that. But it's a lot worse the last 18 than it will be for the next 12 months. We had people stuck, locked in because of mortgage rates. They weren't doing anything. So if in the old days, I'm making numbers up, if you had to make 100 phone calls to get a listing appointment, maybe last year you had to do 300 phone calls to make a listing appointment. And the great agents did 300 phone calls because there are agents that make good money last year. A lot of our KZM members had their best year because so many other agents weren't doing anything. All right. But what winds up taking place is if they turn around and they prospect this year, I don't even need to go back, and again, we're making numbers up, to the 100-to-1 ratio. They might be a 50-to-1 ratio. They're going to get a tremendous return on the investment of anything, money they spend or energy that they use to prospect right now. They might get the highest return on investment they have in a decade. So get them back to doing that. And Marianne, that's the end of my thing. Oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to, people say, well, how do I get it? How do I follow you? The only place I am is on Twitter. I don't like Twitter. Then don't follow me there. This is where I am. I mean, I decided that's where I'm going to be. So it's at Twitter, which is now called X, at Steve Harney. And I post pretty much every day. I post what I think is happening in the market. I post graphs and charts. So if you want to follow me, that's where you would follow me. So Marianne, in case they ask you any questions, I just want to throw that out. Okay, and now we're going to stop sharing. And I guess, Marianne, you're going to open up to questions. Who's opening up to questions?
Yes, Evan and I thought we would unmute everyone, and just since we're a small, intimate group, we could just chat with you if anybody has a question for Steve.
Okay, hold on. Before you do that, hear what she just said. Small, intimate group. What does that mean? Today, at least, you're way ahead of your competition.
Yep.
Use that. Go ahead, Marianne.
Okay. Yep.
Now, you might have muted yourself, so you have to come off mute if you muted yourself and you have a question.
Okay. Peter has a question. Go ahead, Peter.
Hey, Steve, how are you? Peter Caruso, we go back a long way.
Yeah, to a real long way.
38 years in this business. Definitely went through the late 80s, early 90s crash, the financial meltdown. There's plenty business. You're 100% right. Where I'm having my biggest wrestling right now, and I'd like to know if you have any statistics on this, brick and mortar. I'm sitting in my office by myself today. I mean, the business is still there. We're doing it. It's all online. It's all meeting people at open houses. Buyers aren't coming into the office. Do I need a brick and mortar anymore? Do you have any statistics on this?
I don't have statistics on whether you need a brick and mortar. There are now across the country there are on Long Island firms that, their whole business model says, well, we don't need brick and mortar. Now, this is what I will tell you, and I do know some of those firms and how they handle it too. I think the technology has made our business way too transactional instead of relational. All right, I think that's kind of the challenge a little bit, that we're looking at this deal because we got the transactions through some sort of technology, and we almost look at it from a technological viewpoint that, all right, let's do this deal. And, the one thing we know that most of the best business that we have or have availability to is referrals. And if you make it purely transactional instead of relational, that you miss that referral. All right, because you're moving on to the next deal instead of really talking to these people. Now, what does that mean with a brick and mortar question? I think that's a little bit what's happening in the brokerage business. We're missing the interaction agent to agent.
Very much so.
All right, and forget about the agent to us, but agent to agent, meaning that if an agent comes in and just took a listing, all right, and they were bragging about the listing, that conversation is going on in front of the other agents, and then there'll be the question, why are they selling and what's happening? There'll be questions that will be asked that are not showing up on the MLS, but are crucially important to our understanding of how we can best help that client.
Right.
All right,
so like the agent to come back into the office is the question, because they're all working remotely. I get that. And technology led us there. Like right now, I bet you half the people in this room aren't in their office. They're at home on this Zoom meeting right now.
I'm not in my office. I'm in my home office. So I agree.
Right.
With you.
So there's home offices. So it's changing the dynamics of.
Right. So let's give you that.
Physical visual location to still succeed in the industry, I guess, is the main question I have.
I think that the importance of the brick and mortar is as important as it used to be. The importance of getting your agents together is just as maybe more important than it used to be.
Right.
Because
You could do that with
the other thing that
socials,
followed with,
happy hours, cocktail parties.
well, no, not just that.
Networking,
All
educational.
right, well, let me tell you what I think, and then I'll let you let everybody know what you think. Because you asked me the question, so let me answer
Yeah,
it for
go
you a
ahead.
second. The bringing the agents together so they interact with one another is, I think, crucially important to the brokerage business. Now, I think you can do a cocktail parties and all that stuff. What I was talking was not that. What I was talking about, at least once, I would say once a week. Some people will say twice a week, 2 times a month. Others will say once a month. You have to get those agents together. And the first question, now we used to go around saying, tell us about your new listing. I never did that. When I was with that group, I said, tell us the motivation of your new listings. I didn't care about the listing. They could go, years ago, they could look that up on the MLS. Why does that family need to move? Because that brought a responsibility to every agent sitting in that room to help that agent, that family move. It just changed the dynamic of how we looked at the listing.
Great.
Now, you can't do that over getting emotion over anything is much more difficult. So I would bring them together at least once. I would do it once a week. So I would need some brick and mortar. If you do it once a month, maybe you could rent something out. But I would tell you, back even when I had National Home Funders, we took all 500 agents into a hotel once a month. Now the question is, well, how do I get them to show up? Be a good leader.
Question.
Be a good leader.
Yeah.
Prepare a meeting that blows them away. Prepare a meeting that turns around and like they can't wait to the next one. That takes a lot of work on your part.
Yeah.
But that's what has to be done. And I will just also preface this with, we're talking about, agent movement since the technology is taking place. Well, we can jump over here, we could jump over here, we could jump over here. Well, what winds up taking place is if you make it a dollar, if you make it about price, not about value, of course agents are going to move. The
Right.
difference is what you have value to them, not what split you're giving them. If you give them value, if you get together once a month and you blow them away, that you help them make deals, because what you explained to them and how you got them working together, they can't leave you. Because their core business is tied to you. And National Home Funders, I know, was a different time, and it was, 15 years ago now. People always said, you have a cult over there. No one ever leaves. What do you put in the water? No, we made sure that every meeting, we met with the managers of all 13 offices every single week. So they had a weekly meeting with their agents, and times are different. It'd be much harder to get the agents into the office today. I get that. But the value is they need to want to go to hear you. And that requires a tremendous, it took me probably 7 hours to prepare this half hour.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm not
That's the
afraid of them
kind of commitment.
leaving. I'm not afraid of them leaving. I'm just trying to find out the balance of utilizing an office. It's a lot of overhead.
Do I think that you need brick and mortar? It depends on your business model. And if I didn't think I needed the brick and office, I was gonna meet them once a week. Maybe I would downscale to like almost like a conference room type of thing, a big conference room training center.
Right.
And if I was going to meet them once a month and bring everybody together, maybe I would rent something out.
But you don't see a trend of that happening, because I know you watch statistics very, very trend.
No, the trend of agents not coming into the office
Yes.
is speeding up, not slowing down.
Right.
Not to jump in. My brokerage is virtually based because it's largely just me and my business. I have a few small agents, but I've lost out on recruiting some agents because of not having a brick and mortar place for them. They do the producers, the people who get it and treat it like a business. They seem like they're converting a little bit more back and wanting some hybrid type space. That would, as a virtual broker kind of deal, that would be my input for you, Peter.
Thanks.
Great input, Ryan. Thank you very much.
Steve, this is Maureen Kersey. How you doing?
Hey, Maureen, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I actually just opened my brokerage office in March, and I do have a brick and mortar. I definitely think that it is coming back. I am doing 100 Days to Greatness, and I'm having all the agents do a class at night where the agents will be in the office. And I also utilize my office to rent space. So I actually set it up where I have like-minded partners that are helping me out, which help bring the agents into the office because they bring value with classes and other things like that. So
Alright,
when you
so-
have those go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, you're saying exactly, the point I'm making. If you give them value, they'll come.
Exactly. So I have like a title company and an attorney and a mortgage person all renting space in my office. So they offer classes to my agents, which then that brings them in. We're able to network. We're able to do different things like that.
It's great job, Maureen. I'm not gonna get into renting space because there's a lot of questions about that. But and I'm not saying you should have any questions about that. I just don't want to take questions about that.
Yeah.
But what Maureen is saying is kind of what I'm saying. The brokers that decide that they want to offer that extra training and everything, agents need that. They need that. They know they need that. So I mean, but all right, next question.
Good morning. This is Charlie Cruz, a blast from the past. Steve.
I feel like on that show, what's the name of the show where the people would come on and bring all their old friends from 30 years ago on and hug them? I feel like that. Hey Charlie, how are you?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. It's amazing that we're having a meeting, a discussion on the topic of brick and mortars. Thank you for bringing that up, Peter. I always love brick and mortar because of the camaraderie of everyone. Being there, being a little competitive, because you see on the board that one got this business, that one got that business, so it always drive me to do more. I have since in the last 5 years got away from the brick and mortar, so I no longer have that situation, and I miss it very much. And it's amazing because this morning I was having coffee and I was thinking, what am I going to do for my business meetings? I'm not going to do a Zoom meeting. I have to bring them together in one room. And then what am I going to present to them? And just like with my buyers and clients, something I learned from, just like I do with my buyers and clients, I said, you know what? Steve always said, let them see you in their own mind as a trusted advisor. So always try to work towards that with clients and buyers. And I said, you got to do the same thing with your agents, Charlie, to keep them engaged, keep them moving forward, and offer them a kick butt meeting. And it's amazing that we're having the same discussion. So I'm glad that I signed on to this. I was up doing business late last night, and I really didn't feel like getting up early this morning, but I'm glad I did to be on this call. And it's good to see you and glad to hear what I'm hearing.
Well, thank you
You
very
never
much,
cease to
Charlie.
amaze me,
Appreciate that.
Steve.
Appreciate you too, Charlie. Charlie's one of the few people in my life that ever scared me. Whenever I walked up to Charlie, I said, man, I'm not going to mess with this guy. He's a guy you don't mess with.
Stop.
That's still the truth. All right. I don't know why I said that, but that's what I was thinking. Who else has a question? We got a couple of minutes, so I think, Evan, you have to let us know if we're at a time. Well, it's great seeing, there's no other questions. It's great seeing you all. And the thing that I want you to leave this meeting with is the thing that I'm going to leave this meeting with. The people on this call has an advantage over every one of your competitors. Because you did get up this morning, including Charlie, even though you didn't want to. And you came here. You came here to learn.
There's plenty of business out there.
Yeah. So the rest of the brokers out there, I'm not saying they're not all good brokers. They're friends of mine that are not on this list. But you do have a competitive advantage over them right now. Use it.
Thank you, Steve.
No problem, guys. It's all yours, Marianne, Evan, whoever's taking over.
Yes, thank you. So there, I have to tell you, there's an office in Smithtown with 22 managers gathered in a conference room. So they count as one Zoom, but there are 22 of them listening to you. And it
Well,
was-
I'm glad they all got together, share ideas after
Yeah.
here we go again.
Yeah, it was really great. And then what can we say, Steve? You know, we made one inquiry, you said yes, agreed to a date, here we are. And constant friend to LIBOR. Great information. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for allowing us to record it, the slides. And I put in the chat where everyone can find the slides in the recording. So if you want to listen again, it will be there for you as a member of LIBOR. So have a great week. Thank you so much for being with us, and look for more informational webinars headed your way. Thank you, Steve. We love.
Thank you, Mary Ann, very much. I appreciate it. It was an honor.
Okay.
Hi, Mary Alice. How are you?
Okay.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye now.
Bye, everyone.